Oh, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Jayland Walker? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoy this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case. I'll move to the timeline of the shooting, then offer my analysis. In June of 2022, 25-year-old Jayland Walker lived in Akron, Ohio. He was described as someone who was full of jokes and someone who never broke the law. According to a lawyer for his family, he was mourning the death of his fiancée. Now moving to the timeline of the shooting. On June 26, 2022, a New Franklin police officer tried to pull over Jayland Walker because the vehicle that Jayland was driving had a broken taillight and a non-functional license plate light. Jayland failed to stop his vehicle, and the police officer started pursuing him. Jayland drove at speeds close to 50 miles per hour on city streets before crossing the Akron city line, at which time the officer disengaged the pursuit. At 12:30 a.m., now on June 27, 2022, officers from the Akron Police Department attempted to stop Jayland on East Talmadge Avenue for a traffic violation and equipment violation. They didn't specify what traffic violation he had committed or what was wrong with the equipment. Once again, Jayland disregarded the authorities and refused to stop his vehicle. A pursuit was initiated. Jayland drove his silver Buick onto southbound Route 8. 40 seconds into the chase, it appeared as though Jayland discharged a firearm one time from his vehicle. A flash of light could be seen near his car door, and there was a sound consistent with a gunshot. After driving for several minutes on Route 8, Jayland exited at the Archwood Avenue ramp. The pursuit continued on city streets until Jayland slowed his car down. At this point, several officers exited their vehicles and can be seen on body camera videos running alongside and behind Jayland's car. The officers can be heard screaming at Jayland. They were screaming things like, "Put your hands up," "Show me your hands," "Don't move," and "Stop the car." They interspersed a generous quantity of profanity in their commands, which did not improve the clarity of their message, but it was still fairly clear what they were trying to say. With his vehicle still moving slowly, Jayland jumped out of the passenger side door and started running toward a nearby parking lot. He was unarmed and wearing a ski mask, white sneakers, and a black tracksuit. Several police officers pursued him on foot. 3 seconds into the chase, Jayland looked over his shoulder and turned to face the police. There did not appear to be anything in his hands. He did not appear to have, for instance, a weapon. He turned away from them and continued running. The police deployed tasers, but the tasers did not bring an end to the pursuit. About 10 seconds into the foot pursuit, the police said that Jayland stopped and turned quickly toward them. He reached toward his waist and then made a forward motion with his arm. This led the police to believe that he was adopting a firing position, so they thought that he pulled a gun out of his waistband and was pointing it toward them. 8 police officers opened fire on Jayland Walker. They continued firing for about 7 seconds and discharged over 90 rounds. Jayland was struck right away and fell to the ground. From the body camera videos, it appears as though the majority of the police gunfire occurred after Jayland was already lying on the ground. The police handcuffed Jayland, which is how the paramedics found him when they arrived on the scene. Jayland was pronounced dead at the scene. The medical examiner said that he had 60 wounds on his body, although it's not clear how many times he was shot because the medical examiner had not yet sorted out the entrance and exit wounds. The police searched Jayland's vehicle. They found a pistol, a loaded magazine, and a gold ring. Perhaps this gold ring was connected to his fiancée, like it was the one that he was going to wear or she was going to wear. They searched the area on Route 8, where Jayland was thought to have fired his weapon. They found a spent case, which matched the ammunition in the magazine of the pistol. The Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation is trying to figure out what happened. The 8 officers have been placed on administrative leave. Each of the 8 officers said that Jayland reached for for his waist, then lifted his arm toward them. The police released the body camera videos from 13 officers, including 8 officers who fired their weapons at Jayland Walker. On July 3, protests were initiated in Akron, Ohio. They started out as peaceful, but then entered the realm of non-peaceful activity. The mayor of Akron declared a state of emergency and canceled a fireworks celebration for the 4th of July. Around 50 people were arrested, and significant property damage was reported in downtown Akron. At the time making this video, the investigation into the actions of the officers is ongoing, and no determination has been made. Now moving to my analysis. Were the police officers in this case justified in using deadly force? Here are my thoughts on this. Jayland Walker refused to stop for the police on June 26 and on June 27. If he had simply cooperated with the police, he would have probably received a ticket. When Jayland was being pursued on June 27, it seems clear he did fire his weapon at the police. They saw a flash, heard a gunshot, and found a spent case matching his ammunition. Jayland's actions endangered the public, the police, and himself, and certainly created an urgent situation where the police needed to get him into custody. When he exited off of Route 8, he refused to stop his vehicle. He ignored many profanity-laced commands as he chose to run from the police. Jayland left his gun behind, but I think it would have been reasonable for an officer to believe he could have still had it on his person. When he initially turned toward the police, his hands were empty, but considering how quickly he was moving and where the officers were positioned, some of them or all of them may have missed that, like they may not have seen that his hands were empty. Either way, he could have had the gun concealed, so at this point, it would be reasonable for the officers to believe he could be armed. Despite this, the officers did attempt to use their tasers, so they were shot at during the vehicle pursuit, yet deployed their tasers during the foot pursuit. This shows a degree of restraint and is consistent with the theory that they did not want to shoot him. They were looking for an outcome to this case other than discharging firearms. When Jayland Walker turned and faced the police for the second time, it's difficult to see in the body cameras, but it does appear as though he was making some motion with his arm. Considering the circumstances, namely the fact that he was being chased through a parking lot by a number of armed agents, this was probably a bad idea. I think the police were justified in using deadly force. What do I think happened in this case? Like, why did this happen? This is just a theory, my opinion. Jayland Walker was upset for some reason, perhaps due to the loss of a love interest. He no longer wanted to be alive, but he also wanted the police to be blamed for his death, like he wanted his death to mean something larger, to speak to an ongoing political and social issue. He fired at the police in order to make them fear for their lives. He ran away from his vehicle in order to create distance between him and his firearm, and to ensure several officers would chase him on foot. He turned around 3 seconds into the chase, believing that the police would shoot him, but they didn't. Instead, they deployed tasers, which was not what he wanted. The next time Jayland turned around, he made a threatening gesture, which could not be misinterpreted. This time, the police responded the way that Jayland desired. The police were poorly trained and did not regulate their emotions well. Despite Jayland dropping to the ground quickly after being shot, the officers continued firing. They ultimately discharged many more rounds than were indicated by the situation. Which brings me to the next question: why did the officers fire so many rounds? I think there are a few reasons here. Reason number one, the officers appeared to be poorly trained. This is evident not only in their excessive use of force, but in how they managed their positions during the firing process, like where they were standing relative to Jayland and other officers. Some officers fired from a position behind other officers who were shooting, therefore increasing the risk that one officer would shoot another. It's like they were eager to get involved in the shooting. Which brings me to reason number two. A few officers may have had a desire to get in on the action that was occurring, like they did not want to be left out. They joined in kind of late to the shooting, and it's hard to imagine how their actions were necessary even if Jayland had actually represented a threat. Again, he was unarmed. I think what happens sometimes with the police is they feel accountable to their fellow officers. When an officer fails to act to contain a deadly threat, other officers will not trust them anymore. The police are under peer pressure to react to threats. One would think that they would only be afraid of consequences for acting, but they're also afraid of not acting because they could disappoint their fellow officers. Here we see opposing forces. The police department administration pushes officers toward restraint, and their fellow officers push them toward action. Reason number 3, the officers did not adequately manage their emotions. I mentioned this before. This is a common problem for the police, and I'm not sure there is a good solution for it. It's natural for a person to be fearful when chasing a suspect who is thought to be armed. I think the only possible solution is for police departments to select officers who have a good ability to regulate their emotions. This is not something that can really be taught too easily. Reason number 4, research on officer-involved shootings indicates that an officer's perceptions change during shooting incidents. The experience is not the same for every officer, but here are some commonly reported symptoms. Officers perceive the situation to be unfolding in slow motion. They do not hear certain sounds, or the sounds may be quieter. They get tunnel vision. They have increased attention to detail, and they feel as though they are functioning on automatic pilot. Considering the tunnel vision and diminished sound elements, it makes sense that some of the officers involved in the shooting of Jayland Walker may not have understood that other officers were firing as well. They also may not have known other officers started shooting before them. They may have felt as though they were the only one who could eliminate the perceived threat. Therefore, they were strongly compelled to fire until they were positive the perceived threat was neutralized. In addition, the officers may not have been confident that the bullets from their guns were actually striking the suspect. Unlike the representation in the movies, when people are shot, they do not fly backward dramatically. Now moving to my final thoughts. If Jayland Walker intentionally provoked the situation to make the police look bad, he was successful. I think his behavior may be a consequence of people reacting to every shooting with the same level of rage, regardless of the individual circumstances. Perhaps Jayland knew that he could not only manipulate the police into shooting him, but the public into believing that he was a victim. There's a high cost to this reckless behavior. It not only resulted in his death, but could create mental health symptoms for the officers who Jayland manipulated. If Jayland Walker did not intend to cause a controversy and simply wanted to escape, he behaved unwisely and put his life in danger for no good reason. Those are my thoughts on the case of Jayland Walker. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.